This video is about the exercises that I would do if I was growing a huge dumpy, which, my friend, I certainly am. So if you're trying to grow your butt, you have come to the right place. I'm in it with you. We are doing this with strategy and we're making it happen. I have grown a lot in the past 6, 7, 8 months, and we're still going. Of course, it's like my #1 goal right now. So I wanted to share with you how I've been doing that, how I help my clients to do that, and a little bit of strategy behind it. And something that people tend to ask me is exercise selection. What exercises do I do? Because there's so many out there. It's like, how do I pick? Do I need to do all of the different variations of a lunge, for example? And I find that a lot of people honestly do way too much, and that is going to rob you of your gains. There's something that we call it junk volume. Doing too much because you feel like you have to do it all. And if your personality is like me, you feel like the harder you work, the more you do, that is going to be the answer to your success. But one thing that I have learned as a physical therapist, as somebody who's a personal trainer and certified strength coach, it took me messing up this a lot to be able to figure out less is better. Less is so much better, but with a good strategy. So if you're working with a coach, you might kind of wonder, are they helping me with the best strategy? If you do like to work with an online coach, just kind of like check in if you're doing the exercises that line up towards your goals, right? Or if you create your own programs, or if you follow an app, or if you kind of look around the gym and see what other people are doing and try to get, add some of the exercises they're doing to have results like they do. I would do that all the time. I would always be looking around like, okay, what exercise are they doing? What are they doing? Do I need to be doing that? But let me tell you, my friend, less is better. Let's get into the meat of it. So this kind of depends on how many days a week you're going to go to the gym and specifically work your glutes. I think that 2 or 3 days is really a good amount of days if you're able to get to the gym in order to see effective progress. You can definitely do it in 1, and there's people that even work their glutes more, but I really like to work around that 2 or 3 leg days and then 2 upper body days, and that's if you're able to get into the gym 4 or 5 days a week. And then you program your workouts around a big compound movement. So the big compound movements for optimal glute gains are your #1, your go-to, in my opinion, is the hip thrust, the barbell hip thrust. I have found that the barbell is my favorite variation. There's lots of different machines too, but just using the barbell just feels better to me, but that's a personal preference. So you have the barbell hip thrust, you have squat, and you have deadlift. Those, in my opinion, are the 3 compound movements to start your workout with. If you're doing 3 leg days, you can start 1 day squat, 1 day deadlift, whatever variation you want. You can do a conventional or pulse sumo, whatever feels better for your body. We all have different femur lengths. Mine are really long, and that tends to make me like sumo deadlift better. It doesn't matter. And then you have your hip thrust for the 3rd day. Okay, these exercises, the first one I do is the priority that day. Since you have the most energy at the beginning of the workout, you're going to be able to go the most intense with it. So I program this for strength, like 3 to 5, maybe 6 reps most of the time. So I can have a program for progressive overload and increasing strength. Ronnie Coleman once said, everybody want to be a bodybuilder, but nobody want to lift no heavy ass weight. Sorry for the swear, but it's true. You got to lift heavy. The more weight you can lift over time, you're able to progress that and gain more muscle mass in the process. So that's kind of the strength rep range, but then that allows you to do more weight for down the line hypertrophy rep range. What does hypertrophy mean, Holly? That means muscle building. What happens when we build muscle? We tone. Toning is just a beautiful word that people like to use, which actually just means building muscle. More than likely, you don't have the frame to get really bulky. There are women that do have the frame to get bulky, but a lot of the times it's taking something, anabolic steroids, or I said it, or it's your diet that matters a lot. 2, your nutrition, eating for fuel in the right amount of calories and proteins for your gains. So don't be afraid to lift heavy weights so that you can actually build the muscle that you want to build if you really truly want to grow a dump truck. If you're always dieting or you're always trying to eat less, you're not gonna build a butt. So that is a big part of it. The next 2 exercises will either be some sort of squat variation or some sort of hinge variation. There is so many that we could talk about. So let's start talking hinge variation, because I do want to say, if your hip thrust was not your first exercise, then I want it to be your second. You can hip thrust 2 or 3 times a week. I personally hip thrust 3 times a week, and I do it with different types, different variations. So when it's my heavy day, I already told you I'll do it for less reps. I'll do like 3 sets of 5 super intense or something like that. If it's not, if my first exercise is a squat or my sumo deadlift, then the second exercise I will do a hip thrust. I'll either do a version with the band where I pause at the top, get like a nice tuck and squeeze for 3 to 5 seconds, or I'll do a split stance version. I also really like to do single leg or split stance work because we often, well, all of us have a dominant side. We're never perfectly symmetrical, right? We are human. So this just ensures that we're working both sides evenly and equally. Like my right glute does not want to fire as much as my left. And there's even a little bit of a size difference. And I can tell, probably not to the naked eye you could tell, but I like to do that split stance version so I can make sure I'm working this right glute as much as the left glute. So that's what I would do for the second exercise if your hip thrust is not your first one. And this is just my opinion. Take it or leave it, but we're making gains and the work works. If you're doing a squat or if you are doing a deadlift, the second exercise, I would do some sort of variation of that. So squat variations, and I know I'm switching it on you. I was going to talk about the hinge first, but I changed my mind. We're going to talk about the squat first. You can do all different types of lunges. Reverse lunge. You can do reverse lunge with the dumbbells, with the barbell, with the Smith machine. You can do split squats with all the above equipment. You can do step ups. You can do glute step downs. You can do a leg press machine, single or double leg. You can do pendulum squat, hack squat. The list goes on and on. There's 2 different ideas. If you're doing a squat, you might be like, okay, I already did my squat movement, so now I'm gonna do my hinge movement, and then vice versa. On the deadlift day, you could switch and do the hinge movement second, but I switch it up all the time, so that doesn't really matter. It just is some variable that you'll switch throughout your program. The hinge movements, what are those, Holly? You have your RDL variations with the barbell, with the Smith machine, with dumbbells, a deficit. One of my favorites is the back extension with glute emphasis. I'll put some videos as we go so you know what I'm talking about. So then you do your hinge movement for the second movement. or another type of deadlift variation. Then the third exercise, 1, 2, 3, we did our big compound, we did our second movement. The rest of them I like to keep around the hypertrophy rep range, like 8 to 10. So the third exercise, we're going to do our single leg. So yes, it's really choosing between all the exercises I just told you about, but you'll make sure that it's one leg, like a split stance RDL, one of the lunge variations, single leg press. You kind of just take one of those exercises and do either split stance or single leg. It is still a compound movement. It still requires a lot of effort and intensity, but you're just making sure that you are even in the workout, like we already talked about. So I still keep that one in the 8 to 10, sometimes 12 rep range with progressive overload. The reason I like to do less volume, less reps, is because we're doing 2 to 3 leg days. That is a lot of different exercises spread throughout the week. So if I'm always hitting super high rep ranges, then it's really hard for me to find a strategy to implement progressive overload without overdoing it or breaking down. And everybody's body is a little bit different. So if you're doing lower reps, 8 to 10, resting 2 to 3 minutes in between, it gives your body lots of opportunity to be able to repair and recover and build in between. So all of those habits, sleeping good, eating right, and finding a program that doesn't overdo it is going to be vital. Okay, I said it enough times, to your gains. And I keep it at 3 to 4 sets. Sometimes I'll play with 5 in my compound movement to help me get to that heavy set, but a lot of times you don't need to overdo the volume, right? The last one, the fourth exercise, is going to be an isolated movement, either hip abduction or hip external rotation. Abduction is your leg going out to the side. External rotation is it rotating out to the side. So there's the hip abduction machine. We love this. You can do single or double leg. There is the cable hip abduction, and there's lots of band work you could do. You could do clamshells. You could do frog pumps with the band. You could do lateral band walks. And I do sometimes do this one a little bit higher up, 10 to 12, since it is a little bit more isolated. But it's just variables you can play with. Is everything I'm saying an exact, you need to follow this perfectly? No, like I'm telling you, there are so many different variations. A lot of people feel things different ways. We all have different anatomies, different structure, different genetics. So you kind of find the ones that, number one, you just like, so that you have adherence and consistency to it, because it takes that over time with a plan to build in order to see those results. So whatever you're gonna stick to, and mind-muscle connection, that time under tension, mechanical tension, and load, the more weight you use, those are all variables that are going to help you grow. So you find the exercises that you feel the most tension in the muscle with. That's why mind-muscle connection is so crucial. And also it's a skill that you get better at over time, but always think and imagine your glutes engaging and you working them while you're doing it, okay? So that's the bread and the butter to a good glute plan. That's 4 exercises 3 days a week, or you could add a 5th and do them like 2 days a week for 3 to 4 sets, figuring out a rep range that you can progress over time and you're not going to over fatigue with. And that is how you're going to make gains, as long as your recovery and your fuel is there. You know what to do. Make sure that you're eating enough protein, 1 pound per gram body weight. If you even want to be in that little bit of a surplus, then you could eat even a little bit more protein, a little bit more calories, so that you are either building or pumping your body so we can emphasize those areas we want, like the glutes. So let's keep doing this together. Let me know if you're in it with me in the mind muscle community. Let's go. I'm so excited to talk about this stuff. I could honestly talk about it forever if you haven't noticed. I have a lot of content about growing the glutes. So if you have any other questions or something you're dying to like ask me, or you've just wondered about your body, your exercises specifically to be able to grow your glutes, then ask me below so I can make a video about that. I would love to. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to my channel. Give it a like. It's gonna help more people to be able to see this so we can all help each other out. That's what it's about. So I love you. Again, I'll see you next video next Wednesday. Can't wait. Bye.